Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Big Ten Watchdog News Podcast. I'm your host, I'm Graham Dinas.
And I'm Taylor Seamer.
Before we jump into the podcast, just want to give a quick plug to our social medias, wherever you're listening to us on, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. All three of those links are in the description of wherever you're watching, as well as our Twitter, which we're trying to keep up with all the portal moves that are happening now that it's the offseason in the Big Ten. And so there's a lot of that action going on. And then also make sure that you give a follow to our TikTok. All those links are in the link tree in the description. Okay. It's been a week. It's been longer than a week since we've recorded, but it's been a week since the last Big Ten game. Well, that's technically not true because Wisconsin lost on, was that Monday or Tuesday?
That was 2 days ago, so
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
But the Michigan State Spartans, we'll talk about them, playing their Sweet 16 game in the Garden against Kansas State. Really a tremendous game. It was awesome. Marquise Noel put on a show, breaking the record for assists in a game in the tournament. Kansas State wins 98-93 in overtime. But yeah, tremendous game. You have Tyson Walker hitting the layup down the stretch to send it to OT. AJ Hoggard goes for his career high. It was like Malik Hall played well. The whole Joey Hauser went for 18. It's a typical Michigan State game where everyone does really well and they're shooting the ball well and they play well offensively. But it was K-State's game.
It was an absolute heartbreaker for Spartan fans all around the world. They looked at times as if they had it, and then they looked at times as if they had slipped out of it, and somehow they ended up pulling it into overtime. But I think Kansas State was truly the better team. Like, they should have won the game, but for the way Michigan State played, you can't say that, they wouldn't have had a better outcome the next game and be playing, this Saturday.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, everyone on the roster played extremely well. They were down about, I don't remember what the exact time mark was, but when Noel went down, and then they fought their way back to a tie game, and then it was neck and neck up until until overtime. And the dagger in overtime was the play miscommunication where Noel was telling what play to run, and Tang was like, no, and then he just throws the
Through the
lob
backdoor
to
lob. Oh
to
my, the
Keontae
most sexy
Johnson.
play I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was, I mean, that's what having a good guard does for you in March, is you get plays like that wins you games.
And not only that, he put it reverse. I mean,
Yeah,
they had definitely practiced that openly before, and the balls to call that in that situation is insane. But if it works out, it's really good for you because it gave them all the momentum they needed. So
yeah, and that was kind of the dagger in overtime. I thought that K-State, especially Marquise Noel, that was the story of the tournament, and then they just went and got bounced by Florida Atlantic.
yeah, because that was that coach's first year, right? Tang's first year
Yeah,
there at Kansas State. I mean, taking them to the Elite Eight there, and Florida Atlantic is just, I guess you could call a team of destiny at this point. But we'll have to see how they do against who they have.
SDSU, the
SDSU, yeah,
Aztecs, the
the Mountain
mid-major.
West versus the Conference USA, exactly who
That's what we
the
all predicted.
NCAA was trying to hope for to make the most money.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Final Four towards the end of the episode. We've got some Big Ten portal madness to talk about first. But yeah, I had Kansas State in my Elite Eight or in my Final Four. Did you also have them in your Final Four?
I had them Elite Eight.
Okay, they have the Elite Eight is their hump. They never get over the hump, and I don't think in my lifetime they've been to a Final Four. They got there, I think, at least twice with Weber, maybe, and then once before with Frank Martin. They had their fair share of chances, and they just never get there. And yeah, continues to be the story for that program. But yeah, we'll see how the Final Four goes. And with that game happening, the Big Ten's NCAA tournament chances ended. Where do you think Michigan State goes from here? We'll talk about them a little more in depth. Actually, next episode, we're going to break down half of the Big Ten teams in the portal. But just like quickly, What do you think the protocol is for Izzo and Sparty?
No, I think they look good here. They're not necessarily. I mean, I don't think that I've seen any news out of them as to who's leaving or who's staying, which is probably a good sign at this point since they've been done for about a week. I thought I'd see somebody hop in or out. Either way, I think if but I think like Hauser has to leave, right? He's
I
out
think
of
Hauser's
eligibility.
done. I think yeah, this is his
I
last
think they
year.
have another guy. I can't remember who now that might have to leave. But if the core stays, I think they're in a great spot.
Yeah, Pierre Brooks was he left in the portal, but he wasn't he's not one of their key major rotational players. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen anyone go just because of the Hogard, Walker, Akins, Hall dynamic. You'd think that probably one of them would be gone. Um, but I mean, they play really well together. It's just you'd imagine, and if I had to pick out of that group, it'd probably be either Akins or Hall, just because if either one of those guys wanted a bigger role, they would be more than capable of fulfilling it for another team.
Yeah, I think Akins probably felt a little disrespected, especially early in the season. I don't think he was playing as much as he wanted to, but maybe he's got a promise from Izzo or something.
And I guess if Hauser's gone, you move Hall to the four spot in the starting lineup. So you have your that could be your five. I am kind of surprised though that we haven't heard anything. Um, but you got to think this is probably the ceiling for this Michigan State group, right? I feel like what this team did this year is about the best you could expect with the level of players that they have. That's my opinion. What do you think?
No, I would say the same. It's they had like well-rounded guys, but nothing that blew the doors off anybody.
I think if they go to the portal, you got to get a stud, and you're set in the backcourt, so you don't need a guard. Um, you just build through probably a wing or like a four, someone that is going to get you buckets because you already have Tyson Walker, who's a bucket getter. You have AJ Hogard, who can lead the offense. Um, Malik Hall and Akins are good key pieces. Sissoko's good defensively. But yeah, if you're trying to win in March, which is always Izzo's main goal, I think you probably need to attack the wing spots because you're pretty much set at guard.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have an overabundance of guards even.
Yeah.
And with Hauser leaving, you might need a bigger guy to come in.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the portal. So what we're gonna do, like I mentioned, we've got half of the Big Ten teams that we are going to break down in this episode. Next episode, if there are any updates from these teams, we'll be sure to share those. But we're gonna put most of our focus on the other seven teams that we won't talk about in this episode. So we'll kick it off with I guess probably the biggest move of the portal season, which is not a player. I mean, it's not the biggest move of the portal. For the Big Ten, Shrew's out to Notre Dame, and Mike Rhodes is in at Penn State, coming in from VCU. You have any thoughts on the Mike Rhodes hire?
I thought it was pretty obvious that Shrews was leaving, but then there were a couple reports late that said he was coming back. Um, so I'm not at all surprised he left. I like the Mike Rhodes hire. I mean, I think I read he's from Pennsylvania, so that's a great connection to have for him there, and can help him get some homegrown guys, which are always great for the program.
Yeah, East Coast, that's going to be huge. I, I Mike Rhodes is going to get a Power Five job, and Penn State is kind of, I think, like the perfect fit. It doesn't knock my socks off just because VCU now as a program is like the expectation now is to get in and to win one game. That's kind of the bar. And I don't know if he's done that. I'm going to look right now. I know that he didn't in 2021 when he made it, and he didn't this year, obviously. Um, his only other appearance was in 2019, in which they lost in the first round. So I just feel like with VCU, you're in the A10, which is kind of, aside from the Mountain West now, the premier mid-major conference. You're the prohibitive favorite year in, year out. And I just feel like there hasn't been the level of success I would expect out of a VCU coach. That being said, he's done a tremendous job with it's a small program, and they've been very consistent in his time. And he's not going to knock, like, I love Shrews. Shrews is my guy. Just what that his offense is tremendous. I'm sad that he's leaving, but I'm also very happy he's leaving. Um, but Mike Rhodes, he doesn't scare me from a Big Ten fan perspective. As for players, um, everyone is gone. Everyone is gone. Lundy had the extra year of eligibility. He's foregoing it to enter the draft. You have Evan Mahaffey, who could have stayed. He's in the portal. Everyone else, Pickett, Winter, Funk, um, Miles Dredd, Mikey Henn, all those guys are gone. And so what you're left with is the two freshmen from Shrews, pretty much his only recruiting class, in Kanye Clary and Kevin Jai. Um, and you have to wonder if those guys are going to be on their way out too, or if they're going to stick with the program. Because, I mean, they both proved to be difference makers this year.
Yeah, I think this was kind of expected. I feel like all the players knew what they did this year was kind of a fluke down the stretch, and they don't see that happening again, and much less with a new coach and new system coming in. And with half the guys not even being able to return, the guys who were left were like, I'm just going to go find a new spot. Um, as for the young guys, I think they can stay and be the ones that build a program. I don't know if they'll leave. They easily could, obviously, in this day and age, but I would say they probably stay just for that reason, is they can be the ones to set the next bar of the program.
I'm curious to see if they're Penn State guys or if they're Shrews guys, because, I mean, you could very easily make the case that they could just follow him because he's the guy that recruited them. He was their fearless leader. He was great as a
I feel
coach.
like if that was going to happen, though, they would have already left already because Shrews has been gone for over a week now.
Yeah, they're both. I mean, they are both East Coast guys, kind of, and Jai's from Ohio, kind of Claire's from Virginia Beach. So it makes sense that, I mean, they're local-ish guys. Um, I'm curious because Shrews, he's going to have to pick up some help because that Notre Dame team this year was not very good. And so
Yeah, but that doesn't have to come from his team that he had this year. It could come from anywhere across the country.
it could. And after watching the style of play that Penn State played this year, I'm assuming there will be a significant amount of people that would be interested in playing in that system.
Yeah, it's a fun one if he gets the guys that can work it like he had this year. It's one
Absolutely.
that can make you into a star like it did for Lundy and Pickett.
Yeah. And so, assuming that Clary and Jai stay, they're going to need help in the other. They've got their guard and they've got their big. They need to continue to target the 2, 3, and 4 spots because they don't have any incoming freshmen
Yeah,
from what I can
they're
tell.
losing they're losing all their shooting power too. So I think that's got to be a focus because that's how they got people this year was back inside and when they came to help throw it out and make the shot. And now all of that is gone. So, but maybe Rhodes has a different system he wants to run and they'll look for something else. I don't know.
I wouldn't be particularly surprised if there are some VCU guys that are wanting to come over. That would not be a shock to me. But again, if they have literally 3 guys on the roster right now and 2 of them are suspect to potentially leave, you're going to need a lot of help, and that it could be a rough. I mean, I'd assume it probably will be a rough year for Penn State next year, which it always was going to be when you have this team of all seniors and COVID seniors.
Yeah, it was going to be whether Shrew stayed or not. This is not going to be a reflection on Mike Rhodes.
No, no, do not. There's no need to judge him from from year one, unless if it goes extremely well. Which,
If it
hey,
goes extremely well for what the hand he was given, then maybe there's more in the
maybe
books.
he's the guy. Yeah. All right, let's move along to the big dogs. Let's move to Illinois. Um, As of now, we've got Jaden Epps in the portal. I've heard that he's being looked at back home, closer, East Coast, Georgetown, NC State, that kind of a range. Colin Hawkins enters draft. Um, did maintain eligibility, though, has not hired an agent. Um, and then rest in peace to Brandon Lieb's Illinois career, a legend of the program. He'll find a spot at a mid major that will want him, and I hope that he does big things there. Let's talk about Jaden Epps. Go ahead.
I mean, he kind of filled a role that he didn't really know he was going to have to start the year, just because of circumstances outside of his control. I'm not really sure why he's leaving, I guess, because he's set in the role to be the starter next year. So maybe there's something going on in the background we don't know about.
I think my hypothesis is regardless if he stays or goes, we were going to go out and get a veteran guard just because down the stretch, whenever we needed another guard, we didn't have one. It was just him. And then he was dealing with the concussion stuff. And so Illinois was ready to give Jaden Epps the keys to the offense. He was going to be as a sophomore, he was probably going to be one of our, if not the leader on offense. So there are ways in which I'm very confused about this move, but it's not unexpected, is how I describe it. Like I could have predicted it, but I still don't fully understand it. If it was me, I I don't see it from my vantage point, but in the current landscape of college basketball, who knows, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I knew I was going to be a starter at a Big Ten program, I don't know if I would leave, but maybe he thinks there's better, the grass is greener somewhere else. I don't know.
He was one of our five leading scorers this year as a freshman. He was playing 25 minutes a game. Down the stretch, he was struggling to shoot from the field, but he was still getting enough minutes to where I don't think it was a huge problem. But I don't know. I am hoping that what this means is we're going out and getting a point guard that is going to spearhead the offense, kind of
Well, yeah,
like
you need that because I don't know if you have one
now
left.
we don't have a single guard left. We
Yeah.
have we have Sincere Harris, who is a two guard and is a strong defensively, but offensively he doesn't give you much. So definitely need help at the guard spot. Coleman Hawkins to the league. I am not entirely certain. If I had to guess, he'd probably be like a late second round pick. He's definitely the type of guy that could move up through the draft process, though, just because of the athleticism, the measurables, and then he's a high IQ player. And so I don't see what there would be not to like. But if he's not particularly interested in getting drafted 48th, I could see him coming back because he is leaving that option on the table as well.
Yeah, the NBA likes to draft guys solely on potential. I mean, Jet is by no means ready for the league, and yet he's leaving. I mean, there's plenty of examples of this. Um, that being said, I think if he gets, a a great workout where he shoots the ball and they're like, "Oh, we'll take you 12th in the second round or something," I bet he takes it. He just dips.
I think he's going to be a good NBA player. It's just, and he's had 3 years at Illinois, and he has grown each year. I would definitely agree with that, but I just I don't know if his personal preference, and I mean I don't know what his personal preference is, but from what I can tell about him as a human being, I think he would probably prefer to run it back for year four. He's kind of unhappy with how it ended, rather than, hey, I'm going to be a two-way contract G leaguer for a couple of years and then maybe have a shot to make a rotation. Because Io was drafted around this range, but Io was you knew that Io was going to get NBA minutes off the rip. And I don't know. That's almost certainly probably not the case for Coleman.
I mean, Coleman can shoot. He can play defense. Obviously, he showed late in the season, especially he had to guard the five occasionally when Danger was out. I mean, He can do everything. So
He
I don't
has
know
all the
why he's
tools. Absolutely. It's
yeah.
just, yeah, it's raw, and he is 21. So it's an interesting. We'll keep our eye on that, and we'll keep that updated. Terrence Shannon is the other guy that could potentially be heading towards the draft. He has not announced anything yet. I will say I did see him walking around campus yesterday, so um, he's not back home. He's not working out anywhere else. He's still here, if that means anything.
I mean, maybe it's just because he hasn't decided what he's doing yet. And so
That's
he's
very
still got
likely
to
the
be going to
case.
class because if he doesn't go to class, he doesn't get the credit. But
True. Yeah, I'm curious to see. I thought for sure that he'd be a league guy, but maybe he wants another year as well because same thing. He's a competitor.
I mean,
He
he walked at senior night, so I got to think he's gone
yeah. I mean, he did,
because I was there
but
for
that
that,
is.
and I was like, Shannon's leaving after 1 year because I thought surely if he walked, they knew he was leaving.
I mean, but Joey Hauser walked last year. He didn't go anywhere. So
But that was his actual senior year.
this is Terrence's actual senior year. He just has the COVID year next year.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So yeah, we'll see what his thought process is. And again, follow us on Twitter. We're going to be updating that. Other guys that we haven't heard from is RJ Melendez and Ty Rogers. You seem to send me the message every year that your sources are saying that RJ's out. Last year they were wrong. This year we're yet to see.
I do have some sources that said a domino inside the Illinois program was falling,
It was always
and
Lieb. It was Lieb the whole time.
and the predominant word from the Illinois side was that it was probably RJ without knowing who it was.
It was
And
Lieb.
then Lieb announced. So I don't know if that was connected or not, if that was who they were talking about, but I did have word. And then a couple hours later, that Lieb went into the portal. So as for Melendez, though, I don't really know what he brings. He's kind of a I don't know. It's on and off usually.
Oh,
So if
hold
he were
on.
to leave, then
This is breaking from Coleman Hawkins' Twitter. AJ Red will be returning for next year.
oh,
So
interesting.
that's
Okay.
massive. Um, yeah, back to RJ. He had a down year this year, and I think he'd admit that, but he was showing a lot of positive signs of life towards the end of the season. And he was our only offense in the second half besides Terrence Shannon free throws against Arkansas. So I hope he's back. I definitely hope Ty Rogers is back. I'd imagine he would be. I don't know what his reasoning would be for heading out, but because he seems like he's the guy that is going to be built around in this system. So yeah, if we're talking about targets for Illinois, it's obviously point guard and shooters. I think that's pretty apparent.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what caused their downfall this year was not having those type of guys. But then again, I think that's maybe everybody's look
I was
in
gonna
the
say,
portal. Everybody
yeah,
looks for point guard and shooters, so the pickings are slim.
I've seen a couple mid-major names thrown out. I've seen John Tanji. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. If it's Tanji, Colorado State. He's a shooter. His his efficiency last year was incredible. I'm looking at it right now. Where's it at? He shot, yeah, or no, it was this year. He shot 39% from three this year. So that would be a big pickup. He's a 6'5", kind of like it. He'd probably play the three for us. And then Jalen Cook from Tulane is the other name. I saw him also associated with Minnesota, and he would be a point guard. He averaged 20 points a game in the American this year. So a couple names to keep your eye on for Illinois fans. I'm kind of hoping that if there's another name, I know Caleb Love is a name that's being thrown around a lot in the portal. I'm curious to see where that goes. I personally would not be super on board with Caleb Love spearheading the Illinois offense. That just sounds like a horrible idea, but he's probably the most talented player out there. So just a couple names to keep your eye on. I'm going to say this for the first time on this podcast, Taylor. Let's talk about Minnesota.
Oh, that's painful on the ears.
Um, Minnesota, worst team in the Big Ten this year, but they had some fun down the stretch. And then they've lost four of their key players to the portal from from their team that was not good, they're losing 4 of their 7 most important players, including Jamison Battle and Talon Cooper. Cooper has already committed to South Carolina. I'm hearing some battle to – did I hear battle to Michigan? Have you heard that at all?
I haven't heard that, but we would not be
Okay.
mad if you wanted to come here.
I've heard battle to Indiana, and then I've heard several schools. I think pretty much anyone would be interested in Jamison Battle.
Yeah, but I never take the intra-conference transfers to heart until I hear about them because that's usually not something people do.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of interconference transfers either. Just from a personal standpoint, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. But again, I feel like Minnesota, as long as it's not Iowa or Wisconsin, I feel like that wouldn't be a huge problem. I don't think Jamison Battle is like picking fights with guys across the league, and Minnesota has just not posed a threat lately.
Yeah, and I mean, pretty much anywhere inside the Big Ten is not a lateral move for Battle because just of how bad Minnesota was. So
Yeah. So they were already bad, and now they're kind of right back where they started. They've picked up Mike Mitchell Jr., point guard from Pepperdine, averaged about 12 points a night in the WCC. Seems like kind of an on-brand pickup. I'm kind of scared for Ben Johnson at Minnesota. If he's losing guys like this from a team that was already bad, it's scary, I think.
yeah, well, I mean, if I was a guy like Battle and Cooper on a team that won 3 league games, four
Was it
league games,
3? It wasn't
three,
4. It was 2 or 3.
2 or 3 league games, I would be the first one off the ship too because I have way more worth than winning 2 league games. I don't think that's a reflection on Ben Johnson. I think it's just a reflection on I'm the only guy at a Power Five program. This is how it's going to go, and I don't want that anymore.
Yeah. But I mean, they were showing signs of life. They're young, and now they're gonna have a couple young guys that should step up to a bigger role. Dawson Garcia is kind of stuck there because he transferred in from Carolina. So they have Farrell Payne, Joshua Joseph are some names that I recognize that they'll be interesting. I really hope that Ben Johnson doesn't lose his job over this, but again, if he's not able to get any guys, then that's on him as
I don't
well.
think they'll
So
fire him now. I mean, they would have fired him already, so they'll give him
no,
at least
not this
another
year.
year.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
next year they're as of now it's not promising that they're going to be any better. So all right, Rutgers is the next team on the docket. Another team that losing a lot. You've got Caleb McConnell is out of eligibility. I just noticed on the outline here I wrote Cliff Paul, the famous twin brother
of Chris
of
Paul.
Chris Paul from the State Farm commercials. Cliff Amore and Paul Mulcahy both put their names in the draft portal or in the draft pool. Both are maintaining their eligibility and they're keeping the lifeline to come back. But Dean Reber and Oscar Palmquist both gone. So a couple key role players for this Rutgers team.
I'm kind of surprised that they had this many guys leave because they had success. They faltered for a couple weeks there, which kind of threw them off, but dealing with a couple injuries. But I think on the whole, they're a good team, and I can't see why this many guys are leaving.
Especially the program like Rutgers. I feel like Rutgers, maybe even more so than anyone in the conference, kind of resembles that like this team's like a family. And it's just kind of odd seeing these key role players. I don't know where else they would go, to be completely honest. Unless if they're
Yeah,
got
and it's
mid-major lateral or step back moves to get more buckets. I don't know.
yeah, and I like that at least Cliff and Paul are coming or allowed the option to come back. But I mean, losing 3 of the maybe the best 5 guys on the team is tough, guaranteed. So
They're getting
it'll be a
back.
struggle for them next year, I guess.
They're building around. I'd imagine they'd build around Geo Baker Jr. and Derek Simpson. He looks the same, plays the same number. He just looks like a reincarnated Geo Baker, especially down the stretch. Cam Spencer is back, I believe, for another year. And then Mawot Mag, whenever he comes back from injury, and Andre Hyatt are both coming back. So they still have guys on this team. And I'd imagine they're going to be a team that's going to pull in a couple mid-major transfer guys that are going to become very annoying to play when it comes to Big Ten play.
I mean, they already are already, so that's just kind of how they are
Yeah, it's the
as a culture and
Pikel way.
identity.
I love the Rutgers culture. I was a big fan of Penn State this year. I've said it probably 40,000 times on the show, but Rutgers is another Big Ten team that I've just always really enjoyed watching them play and what they do as a program. And so I'm curious to see. I definitely don't think Mulcahy is going to get any NBA looks.
No, I was just going to say, I think Cliff has by far the better chance to be in the NBA. And I think he probably will be, but I think Paul is back. He just doesn't have what it takes. He just wanted to test it out for fun.
Purely defensively, Cliff Amore could be a difference maker in the league. But NIL, he's probably going to make more money at Rutgers. So that'll be an interesting decision for him.
Is the Rutgers NIL program that good?
I have no idea, but Cliff Amore is a really good player. And if McConnell's gone, he's kind of the face of the program.
I suppose.
Already was this year, essentially. So yeah, targets in the portal. Looks like they're set at guard. They're gonna need to go big if Cliff's gone. They definitely need to target like the 4 because you've got Dean Reber and Palmquist are gone. Just shooting and another big is probably where I'd go.
I think a defensive glue guy like they had from
McConnell
this year, because he saved them in some of their games. I mean, Rutgers can only shoot so well, so McConnell's turnover forcing on defense helped them win a couple of their games, especially the big ones.
That's going to be a huge hole to fix because this whole Rutgers regeneration of the program, Caleb McConnell's been there the whole time, and he's one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in the country. And so that's just a huge perk to have on your team. And we'll see how the story changes with him gone. Let's talk about Michigan, Taylor. Jett Howard to the league. We talked about that earlier. You don't think he's ready. Probably certainly isn't ready defensively. We'll start there.
I don't think he's ready, but I'm glad he's gone. It was fun while it lasted, I suppose. But if you look at kind of the way we played in our record when he played versus when he was out with injuries, we played so much better without him. And I think it was kind of a forced relationship because his dad was here. Great player offensively, a large liability on the defensive end. And I think we can find somebody who can play, make up for the defense and play at 80-90% of his offense, and that'll be just fine for what we need.
He's going to be, if I had to guess, he's going to be a tremendous NBA player. I feel like he'll be a great NBA guy. But yeah, just definitely needs to mature on both ends, really. But he has enough of a bag. He's a gifted enough scorer. He's going to give buckets in the league for sure.
I think, that's a no-doubter. I mean, he gave buckets in college like it was nothing. So when there's less defense on him, he'll be lighting up the floor.
What about Bufkin? I want to know what your thoughts are on Kobe. Is he going anywhere? Is he staying?
Okay, so I don't know what the problem is this year. Last year, the rumor mill was very loud around town. This year, it is quiet, and I have no idea what he's going to do. I have been looking in every nook and cranny and cannot find a beat on what Kobe's going to do. But I hope he stays. If he stays, we've got a couple guards coming in. Terrace and Hunter can run the Twin Towers again, and it'll be a fun year if that happens. Doug will come back. We'll be sitting pretty. If he leaves, I'm going to be worried.
Do you get Llewellyn for another year?
We do if he stays. Yeah, I haven't heard anything on that either.
That's interesting. I mean, Kobe Bufkin's definitely an NBA guy. It just does same question that we were asking with TJ and Coleman. Is he going to leave on a sour note of this season, or is he going to say, hey, I can be the guy on this team that, hey, we can make a tournament run. We have all the talent. It's just a question of, hey, but the difference with Bufkin is he would be a mid-first round pick. The other two guys, Terrence Shannon is a late first at best, probably an early second. Coleman is a mid second at best.
Yeah, and with the way that the season was going, I was kind of angry that Kobe decided to turn it on and show out because that just brings the eyes of the NBA scouts right on you. But if he leaves, I'll be sad, but I'll understand why, hoping he comes back.
They both sat out the NIT games, right?
Allegedly because both were hurt.
Yeah. Again,
Kobe played the first game,
not to speculate,
sat out the second game. Jet
not to
didn't play
speculate,
either game.
but we were talking about Bryce Sensabaugh kind of in a similar fashion, and he has put his name in the draft, but he's also same deal with he can come back as well. I don't know why anyone wouldn't do that. I guess, I mean, if you're Brandon Miller, sure, but
Yeah,
it just seems like a smart idea. So we'll see again. We'll stay posted on Kobe Buffkin. I know nothing about Isaiah Barnes.
yeah,
I need you to tell me
because
about Isaiah Barnes.
and you shouldn't because he has played way too many minutes, way more minutes than he has ever deserved, and that would be, I think, 6 total. He is the best. He is like an insane athlete, super quick, can jump super high, can't score, can't play defense. He was recruited out of high school solely because of how athletic he was and has done squat in the 2 years he's been here. I was begging him to leave last year to free up a scholarship for somebody. Finally, he did it this year. No knock to Isaiah as a person, but as a basketball player, this man did not deserve a scholarship at the University of Michigan. We need better players coming in than that.
It sounds like you're knocking him as a person.
No, I'm sure he's a great guy. Never talked to him. Never talked to him, so I can't, knock him on his person on how he is outside of the game. But inside the game, he is rather, what's the word I'm going to use? Atrocious, maybe.
Um, yeah. Where do you think the fit is there? Is he a mid-major guy? Does he need to like?
No, he'd be great at mid-major. He can get some open
Okay.
shots, and he can beat some guys off the dribble and be just fine. But he can't play at a Power 5 team. I'm sorry.
Change the Valley. Lieb and Isaiah Barnes are going to team up, and they're going to replace Damask and Lance Jones, who are sadly both in the portal for the Dogs.
Which is such a shame.
They could both come back. We don't know. You guys added Namari Burnett earlier today, from Alabama, previously from Texas Tech. He's never really lived up to his rating coming out of high school, but defensively he's been good. I think that's going to be huge for you guys. If you're replacing Jet Howard with Namari Burnett, that's a better team fit for sure.
Yeah, I would say. And this kind of came as a surprise to me because the word on the street was Jawan wasn't even recruiting right now. He was at home. So like just to see this name drop out of nowhere, I haven't done any research on him because it just dropped. Was it this morning or last night?
Yeah, it was around, I believe, like 10 a.m. this morning.
Yeah,
as far as I'm aware.
It was surprising, but I mean, I'll take him because, yeah, I think he's a good team fit. I don't know. I thought some other guys would be better that we brought in and they've been busts, but hopefully this guy can change that.
We'll see. He needs to work on his shot. He shot 32% from 3 this year, which almost doubled his percentage at Texas Tech. But yeah, I think improved 3-point shot. He's going to be able to guard. That'll help. What else do you think adds in the portal? Also, wait, before we get to that, what was the fake Hunter Dickinson Twitter thing? Did it say he was staying or that he was leaving?
No, that he was staying. It was the same. Some guy made a Twitter account,
fake Hunter Dickinson account,
and he just reposted the same picture that Hunter used last year to say that he was coming back. And people took it and ran with it. I didn't understand what was going on. And I was like, he would come up with something new, I thought, for this year if he was staying or leaving. But he just literally reposted the exact same picture under the name Hunter Dickinson on Twitter, and people lost their mind.
So Hunter Dickinson has not agreed to come back.
He's not officially said either way what he's doing.
If Hunter Dickinson is in the portal tomorrow, what are your thoughts?
I think the spot at big is covered if he leaves. If he hits,
that's hot. That's a hot take.
Why is that? Terrace is fine and has a higher ceiling, and we have Greg Glenn. Good, oh my, that can play the backup role if he develops over the offseason. I mean, he's raw right now and can't really do much, but I mean, he has 6 months to get there. So, but I mean, he can't go to the NBA. There's not a spot for him in the league. So it's either he comes back or he goes in the portal. And I think he loves it here too much. He loves Juwan. He wants to be back. So I think he'll stay.
Yeah, I don't. He's definitely not an NBA guy. He doesn't guard particularly well at the Big Ten level, and so the NBA is that's a nightmare comparatively. Um, so yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. But I was just curious to see, since he hasn't said anything, what your thoughts would be. I'm appalled though that Harris Reed has a higher ceiling than was he a first team All American as a freshman? I'm assuming Hunter Dickinson.
Was he? I can't remember
I
if
feel
he
like he
was.
definitely was. Right. I
I
mean,
would say
you
his
guys,
freshman year was his best year. So
it definitely was. Yeah. Has it gotten progressively worse? Was he better this year than he was last year?
not, I don't think worse is the right word. I think it's just teams have figured out what he does. So he has to work harder to get the
Who's
same results.
consensus All American?
Interesting.
I'm assuming that was his freshman year. Although his freshman year was, I mean, statistically his worst year, but he also didn't start off the rip. So yeah, what else are we adding? Or are
We need
what
something.
else are you adding?
We need something at the four. Cheddar and T. Will just do not have what it takes to get it done at the four. I think other than that, we really have guys that I mean, Kobe at the one, Doug at the two, or vice versa. We've got guys who can play the three. I just don't think Terrence Williams and Will Cheddar have what it takes to get the four spot done. Just because one of them can't score and one of them can't play defense. If you could put them together into one person, that would be fine. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
when they're separate guys, we need somebody who can do both.
I feel like what this Michigan team is really lacking is their guy that literally does nothing but run corner to corner. Their Duncan Robinson, Chauncey Brown type. I feel like this
We
team,
tried to get Joey Baker to do that this year. He kind of struggled, but
that's true.
if we can get him back for next year, that'd be nice. He's
Okay.
applying for a waiver.
Okay.
Come back next year.
That could be interesting. But yeah, I mean, Joey Baker was definitely not Duncan
He was
Robinson
not
or
Duke
Chauncey
Joey
Brown.
Baker. Yeah, he was not Duke Joey Baker this year. That's for sure.
All right. Indiana is up next. Another team that is losing a lot. You have Race Thompson and Miller Kopp. This was both of their fifth years, so they're done. Trace has said he's going to the league. Hood Schifino is not declared yet, but that's what everyone's kind of assuming. That's the direction he's going. And then Tamar Bates and Jordan Geronimo are in the portal. So what they have left, they've got Malik Renew coming back for his sophomore year. They've got Trey Galloway, who stepped into the starting point guard role when Xavier Johnson went down. And then you have Xavier Johnson, who needs a medical hardship waiver to return for his last year. And so if he's able to get that, that's what you've got, as well as they've added Peyton Starks from Ball State, who I'm not entirely – that name does not ring a bell for me. He is a sophomore. He averages 13 and a half points a game, it looks like. Not a shooter. So, yeah, this team really – I mean, Trey Galloway is an all right shooter, but they're looking at a complete retool. And Mike Woodson is I'm curious to see how he tackles this because he stepped in last year in year one. And he built around Trace Jackson Davis. This year he built a significantly better team than he did last year because you have Hood Schifino and Renew. You have these freshmen. But without Trace Jackson Davis, is this team going to be a bottom feeder in the Big Ten? Or are they going to be able to – is Mike Woodson a good enough fit and coach to where he can, drive this team to be a mid-level team in the Big Ten without a stud? I'm curious because I like Mike Woodson's system, but I think it was very, very Trace Jackson Davis centric, as it should have been. He was one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that what he did before was the right move, but I mean, and he's a great coach too, but can he get it done with no headline named guy?
Exactly. I think Mike Woodson is a very high quality coach, and I think he's probably one of the four guys in the Big Ten that I would say I would equip with a completely blank roster and say this team still has a chance to be a tournament team. But again, I mean, Xavier Johnson is a good secondary or tertiary piece. Malik Renew could probably fit in that same category if he takes a leap this year. Trey Galloway's a role player. This Peyton Starks is a non-shooter, so maybe you have your four and your five. I think that they're just going to need a scorer at the wing spot would be kind of the target for this Indiana team, as well as just, loading up with depth and shooters off the bench.
Well, it's a good thing that wings at the guard spot are in high abundance in the portal, and Indiana is an attractive place to be as basketball program wise. So I don't think they'll have a problem with that if that's what they're also looking for.
Yeah, I'm looking. This is a name that I've associated with Jamison Battle. That could be a fit in that spot. Caden Shedrick from Virginia is a name I'm hearing to kind of fill out that five spot. Nick Timberlake is the interesting name that I'm seeing. I watched him play. Oh, I don't remember who he was playing, if it was Charleston or UNC Wilmington. In the Colonial Tournament, he was playing, I think it was Charleston. And he had a great game. He's a shooter. He could be a pretty solid guy. But again, he's not going to be your just, elite stud type guy. A name I'd keep my eye on for Indiana would be Caleb Love. That could be a fit. I know that they have Xavier Johnson, but both of those guys last year were in two kind of ball dominant guard backcourts with Hood Schifino and RJ Davis respectively. So I think that could be a player that works, and Caleb Love in a Mike Woodson system probably put up 22 points a night if he's just getting these ISO looks all night long, which is kind of what Trace did.
Yeah, and I've heard some Twitter rumblings that he's going to be, at least has been contacted by Indiana and is looking into it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up there.
That's kind of, I mean, I'm not hoping for that. I'm not a huge fan of really in general Caleb Love's game. A lot of chucking. He's getting his shots up, but yeah, I just very inefficient as a scorer. And so he's able, whenever he's good, he's one of the best scorers in the country. He just has that Russell Westbrook type tendency to just kind of chuck regardless of how he's shooting on the night. And that can kill a team. And a lot of times that killed this North Carolina team that went from preseason number 1 to not in the field.
Yeah, and that's something he's gonna have to overcome no matter where he goes. I mean, because even if he goes to a mid-major, I mean, we saw like an Amani Bates style thing where he went to Eastern Michigan and they still were under 500 with, arguably the best player in mid-major basketball coming in, at least the like highest rated recruit. And
Definitely
they still sucked. Yeah. And when he chucked, I mean, he had to score 30, 40 a night to even have a chance for that team. And when he didn't do that, they got blown out. So
as a move for him, though, I mean, he improved his stock with that move. But again, that was an awful team, one of the 30 worst teams in college basketball.
But it's really the only team that would take him with the circumstances surrounding him.
Yeah. So yeah, I've also heard a lot of Mizzou for Caleb Love. He's a St. Louis guy. So
I don't like that for Missouri, though, because I think they're on the up as a program, and I think Caleb Love is not the answer that they're looking for.
Unless if he is, because he can be. It's just it's a tough situation with Caleb Love. I'm very curious to see where he goes. Maybe he's the guy at St. John's because all these St. John's guys are leaving. Maybe Rick Pitino wants Caleb Love. He can be the Rusticulous 10 years later. I don't know if I see it, but that's a possibility. All right, let's finish with Wisconsin. Jordan Davis announced he was entering the portal tonight, just a couple hours ago. I think just about everyone from this Wisconsin team last year is still there. I don't think they have any graduates. I think it's just Jordan Davis is gone. And so a team that underperformed, finished, there's not a third place game for the NIT, is there?
I don't think so.
So
I
they
think they're
lost in
done.
the semis of the NIT. Um, just a team that really didn't pose a threat in Big Ten play. How does this team improve in the portal as they're returning everyone from this team from last year that didn't do much?
Yeah, they didn't do much, but I mean, a year's experience and another offseason are always helpful. I don't know what kind of recruits they have coming in, but I can't imagine that they'll be back to middle to bottom of the pack if they don't get a guy, a legit guy in the portal.
They've got Gus Yalden, who is a name that I recognize. I think he plays up in like the Quad Cities area. I think he's an Illinois guy. Maybe like Moline or something like that. But he's a big 7 foot white guy.
That's
Um,
right
that's
on
right
brand
up
for
their alley.
Wisconsin.
Exactly. Frank Kaminsky. He's not gonna be Frank Kaminsky. Ethan Happ, that kind of guy. Um, so they're getting back to their roots. That's fun. Another Stephen Crowell is still there. Chucky Hepburn, again, I said this year I was expecting the Chucky Hepburn breakout year. That didn't come, but maybe next year's the breakout year. And they've got Connor Esijan, who was on the all freshman team. So Tyler Wall will be coming back likely, and he's shown potential. He had a down year this past year. So there's a lot of areas in which they could stay the same and improve. But I think if they really want to threaten teams outside of the Big Ten and in the tournament, they're going to have to get more athletic and kind of go off brand to do that. Because last year when they made the tournament, they played a strong game defensively against Iowa State. But like even when they played Colgate, I felt like they're physically imposing, but no one is scared of them just because they're not any more athletic than your average mid-major team. They're better, but not more athletic.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, we saw that in the NIT. They got beat by North
North
Texas
Texas.
after not scoring for 9 minutes. So yeah, I mean, if North Texas is beating you, then you know it's kind of a problem and you need to look into it.
North Texas, and here's my victory lap. Um, they were in my field down the stretch. They were one of my last four in, and now they're playing right now for the NIT championship as
They're
we're
up 10
filming
at
this.
half.
They're up 10 at half on conference rivals Alabama Birmingham. So the metric, I wasn't a huge fan of it, of how it was, reacting towards these mid-major teams, but it did a really good job. And we'll talk about that with SDSU and Florida Atlantic. But yeah, so just athletes for Wisconsin is really what I would target. Right.
I would say, but that's not really that's not what Greg Gard nor Wisconsin is really known for. So we'll see if they do it or not.
Yeah. It's interesting because how long do you need to depend on your formula whenever it doesn't get you to where you want to be? And you could say that about 86% of Big Ten coaches, right? So we'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of looking in the mirror, as there has been the past several years for the Big Ten. And we'll see if Wisconsin makes any major moves. Again, if any of these teams that we just talked about have any key additions or key subtractions in the next week or so, we will keep you posted, especially on Twitter first, but then we'll talk about it on the podcast. So follow us on Twitter. All right. We'll cover the other 7 teams next week. Let's talk about the Final Four while we're here. We haven't done much national stuff at all. I don't know if we've done any national aside from our bracket breakdown where we just kind of talked about teams. But we're down to our Final Four, starting with the Florida Atlantic Owls out of Conference USA taking on the San Diego State Aztecs for a chance to play in the title game. How did we get here?
We get here because the net rankings stink.
Are we
They're
doing that
awful.
today? Are we doing it today?
We're not doing that today, but that is just the reason that we got here. Because FAU and SDSU are both better than where they got seated, and they got seated there because the NCAA takes their completely arbitrary, some dude in the dark gives each team a random number generator and decides, oh man, you're a 9 seed when you've won 32 games and so on. When Gonzaga plays in just as equally a bad conference, wins 30 games and they're a 1 seed. Okay, yeah, that's how we got here.
I was big on the Conference USA. My metric was, and I didn't believe that North Texas was a tournament team, but the metric said they were, and maybe they were. Florida Atlantic, I had them as a 5 seed heading into Selection Sunday. That's where I had them, and SDSU was a 3. The net rankings have Florida Atlantic as 13 and SDSU as 14 before the tournament started. So, if anything, maybe the net, but then you have it's interesting. But those two teams were well represented in the net. But then you have Utah State, who got crushed by Missouri. They were 18, and Nevada, who got hammered in the play-in game. They were top 40. So
because the net is broken.
It seems like maybe the Mountain West and not CUSA, but the Mountain West in particular was being overrated by the net just because of San Diego State. That's a possibility.
So you think one really good team throws off mid-major net rankings?
If there are teams in the conference that can beat that team, because you saw in the Mountain West, right? Boise State and Nevada, and who was the fourth? Boise, Nevada, and Utah State. Those were all 4 of those teams were very competitive in the Mountain West, but SDSU was clearly a step ahead nationally. It's kind of like I don't know, like there are cases, Michigan in the Big Ten, not this year, but last year, right? You finished 11-9 last year?
Yeah.
But barely above 500 because of Big Ten play, but the style that you play in your conference does not directly translate to how good you are on the national stage in the tournament. And
that's why I don't get why we ever went away from at least considering the eye test. Like you can just look at some of these teams and be like, they just are not nationally competitive. And you can look at other teams that are 11-9 in their conference and be like, oh, these teams are very nationally competitive. Their conference is just so good. Or everybody, like the style within the conference is tough to play, but outside it would work really well. And I just don't get the sole reliance only on numbers. Like there's more to basketball than just the numbers.
So the way that it works is you use the non-conference schedule from November to December to rank how good these conferences are. And then you have conference play to be like the determinant of where these teams rank within their conference. Well, obviously Big Ten play is nothing like tournament play, but that also is there a problem with non-conference play and the tournament? Because year in, year out, Big Ten dominates non-conference schedules. And then they get into March and they don't have a single one of the best 16 teams, right? And so it's because the Mountain West was beating teams in the non-conference. It's just, you look at them and you're like, it's just a different style in the tournament. I don't know what it is. And it might have to do with play style, but the inconsistency of the new game in which you're reliant upon the 3-pointer so heavily. And then you get into the tournament and the ball is like a bouncy ball. And if it hits the rim, it doesn't go in. And every team is shooting 31% from 3 at best. You're seeing, I think that is one of the key reasons why you're seeing these 4 teams as the 4 left, because all the best teams in the regular season have compiled an aggregate schedule to where they have bad shooting nights and it doesn't affect them. That's why there wasn't a dominant team. But in the March Madness style tournament, you're one bad shooting night and you're out. These teams are the ones that were able to either combine enough good shooting nights or didn't depend upon catch and shoot corner 3 looks. And so you have this Purdue team, which is feed the post, kick out, feed the post, kick out. Doesn't work in the tournament whenever you can't shoot.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's Yeah, because in the course of a season, you can win, 5 games in a row off your shooting, and then you have one bad night and it doesn't kill you because you're 5-1. But when the tournament comes, you have, I mean, it's single elimination. So you have the one bad night in the 6 games, your first night, and you're done. You don't even get to play the rest of the six. So
It's interesting. Yeah, if the NCAA tournament was 32 teams and it was 5 game series, then we'd be seeing a lot less parity in the tournament. But you're seeing the one off like Alabama. Alabama is extremely analytically sound to where they're getting shots at the rim and they're getting open threes. And so against SDSU, the threes aren't falling. SDSU has a good rim protector inside. They aren't able to score. They have a bad night. They're bounced by a good team, but not a team that's better than them. If they played 5 times, they're probably winning in 4 of them. So it's just the nature of March Madness. It's what makes it fun. But is it better to have, the best teams or to have this fun style? You know, it's a
my
personal.
personal opinion is the fun style because we all know it's set up not to be the best team cutting down the nets on April 2nd. It's the fun of watching the upsets and the Cinderella stories throughout the time and being entertained for an entire month of great basketball that you just don't see anywhere else.
I don't think that the tournament, it's hard to say. I don't know if it determines the best team because if you're going to average out 6 games, Alabama might have the 5 best games in the tournament and then lay a stinker. But that stinker, they're not going to win. And so what the tournament does, and I respect how it crowns a champion because it takes these teams that, you know, are able to play through a bad game. If your team is consistent enough to play through a bad game or to not have a bad shooting night, into your season, these teams are like the most consistent teams that are left. And I think that deserves a prize as well. I think that if you're going to crown your champion, you want the team that doesn't have a flaw that can get picked on and doesn't depend on your shooting, unless if your shooting is just tremendous, like that 2018 Villanova team was great.
Yeah, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. So some of these teams shoot just well enough to where all the teams that they've played have had their bad shooting night on that night, and they've snuck by. And now they're in the Final Four, like FAU, for example. Clearly, they weren't better than anyone in their region, like on paper, or even if they were to play, yeah, like even a 3 game series, but they just play defense well enough, or the team that they're playing shoots bad enough that they can just sneak by, and it makes it so much more exciting because you get, you know, the 9 playing the 16, playing the 5, playing the
Three, yeah,
3
K State.
to then go play in the Final Four.
And one thing about FAU too is that they were a couple inches away from not making out of the first round. And you could say the same thing about Miami against Drake. Florida Atlantic almost lost to Memphis, and then who knows where we're at if Memphis is in the Sweet 16 playing Tennessee. It's that's the beauty of this tournament. I think the only thing that you could argue would be to reseed after each round, if that would make it more fair. But if you did that, it would just be awful for like site managers. If they were playing it in Indy, that would be possible. But again, like if Fairleigh Dickinson beats Purdue, they've earned the right to play Florida Atlantic. They shouldn't have to then go play Alabama in the next round,
Yeah,
right?
I would agree.
So if you want the best teams to get there, that's just not how it's going to go with the new style of basketball. Um, but I do think that could be fixed because there have been a ton of complaints about the ball in the past 2 years, three
Yeah, but
years.
yeah, there was complaints about it last year and nothing changed. So I don't think the NCAA really is looking into it like they should.
But I mean, this year you're seeing, 30% from three on average
I feel like we were having the same conversation though. Teams were shooting horrible, players are complaining about the grip, complaining about the bounce, and they went right back to it.
for whatever. I think that's something that needs to be looked at because there's the big argument with college game versus the pro game. I'm a much bigger fan of the college game just because I feel like it means more to the kids. And watching someone like watching perfect basketball is, in my opinion, personally less fun than watching imperfect basketball. The flaws of college basketball players and teams is what makes it more fun. But you're seeing like people are like, I can't watch this because no one makes shots. Well, these teams can make shots. They can make 5% more of their threes than what you're seeing on the national stage. And I think it would just be better for the product if
Yeah,
these
those are
teams
just
were shoot better.
casuals, I think, though. Those are just, like casual fans who only watch March Madness because they're NBA guys or something like that. If you watch like an entire season of college basketball, you can't tell me that there are not games, mid-major, Power Five, you name it. I mean, a mix, whatever, that are any worse than an NBA game. I mean, you get teams who are really good, who play overtime games, like you get in the Big Ten occasionally. You get that 110 to 105 game between Iowa and Michigan State that we had was much more fun to watch than a 130 to 140 NBA game, in my opinion, just because it was so out of the norm and crazy. And you get mid-major teams who will play a 40 to 30 game, and that's cool just on its own because there so much went wrong that it was an interesting game. You know, it was so hard to watch that it was so easy to watch. And you just don't get that in the NBA. It's 140 to 130 every night. You know who's going to score 30. You know who's going to get 10 blocks. You know who's going to have 3 steals, and you know who's going to get a fan kicked out of the next game.
It's yeah, I feel like the NBA more so. I mean, it's reality show ish, just like with the players. And then the style of the game, it just isn't as interesting whenever you're seeing these teams go 5 out, ISO, draw the defense, kick for a three, or 5 out, ISO, drive to the rim, open layup, right? Like if that's all you're really seeing, I mean, and that's like more of the Houston Rockets, James Harden stuff. But the spacing in the NBA and the shot making, it's just like, why would I watch the game? Why is the game more interesting if my 12th man can go for 30? If anyone can go for 30, then it's not fun when someone goes for 30, I feel like.
Yeah, like we all. I mean, we had an entire episode that was 30 minutes of spent on Mason Gillis setting a record for hitting 9 threes. But I mean, Curry's hit like 13 threes in a game before. I mean, it's just like something that
Yeah,
is
you've got
whatever.
yeah, I mean PJ Tucker has like made a career out of being a 6'4" center because he shoots one of the highest percentages from the corner in the league. He was in the league, he was out of the league, and then he came back because he can shoot corner threes. And that's all he does. And sometimes he doesn't score at all because they just don't leave him. Like that's not as fun as having a guy that's just like a freak athlete that sits in the corner and on any given night could go for 18 or he could go 2 for 2 with 1 for 7. And that's annoying as a fan of that player, but for the greater sphere of college basketball, I think it's just more entertaining, at least from my perspective.
And
And
there's
I
just there's just so much more like I don't know. You have to actually scheme. You have to actually coach. You have to actually like play when you're in college. In the NBA, I feel like it's just. I mean, they run plays and there's coaches on the sidelines, but are they really scheming? I mean, you go to practice, 3 times a week and you throw up 40 shots, but you don't run anything. I mean, you do in the playoffs, I guess, but it just the NBA regular season doesn't feel like it means anything. But for some of these mid-major teams, especially like college basketball, is the regular season is what they have, and they're there to go win the regular season title.
exactly like every night is important in college basketball, whereas in the regular season for the NBA, right, there are teams that have already clinched and there's a month left in the regular season. And so you're seeing like it's not important for these teams to have all their guys play every night because there's a guy sitting up that doesn't even play that is capable of replacing their production.
Yeah, and you see none of this tanking stuff that you see in the pros because there's no draft or whatever. Like
There's no reason to
guys are giving
tank.
it their all every single night. There's no, sandbagging down the court because you're trying to lose this game and you're up by 5 with 5 to go on accident. If you're up with 5 with 5 to go, I mean, we saw this with Minnesota, right? they had nothing to play for, and last year they went and spoiled Wisconsin. This year they went and spoiled Rutgers, and it was like the most enjoyable part of their season. And they had nothing to play for,
Yeah.
but they went and did it anyways. I mean, you don't get that in the NBA.
No. I mean, there's a lot, there's way more to talk about on this debate, and we might have more off-season time to devote to it. But yeah, I think that was a really good discussion about NBA versus college, and I mean, we kind of, we got off on a tangent, but I think there was a lot of extremely, potent points that were made. I think that was a well nuanced conversation about that. Back to the game though. Florida Atlantic and San Diego State is likely to not be anything close to an NBA game because that's what SDSU does. They stop you. Florida Atlantic likes to score though. Again, we're getting a mid-major team in the title, kind of reminiscent of 2011 was the Kimba year where UConn won it. And they played who they play in the semis. I think maybe Kentucky in the semis. I could be wrong. But then on the other side, it was Butler against VCU, and it was Butler the year after they had won. They went to the championship the year before, and so just not a very entertaining game on the other side. Really, that whole Final Four was kind of rough.
That was like the 2, 8, 11, and something like
It was
6.
three. Oh, let's see who won this
Because
region. It
VCU was
was
like the
Kentucky. It
11
was
that year, right?
Kentucky. Yeah. So Connecticut was a 3 because Kimba had carried them to the championship of the Big East. They won 11 straight. Kentucky was the 4 that they beat, and then the other side you had 8 seed Butler and then 11 seed VCU. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what this Final Four is reminding me of. And every single time that the Final Four breaks open for a team that's not a 1 or a 2 seed, UConn wins it. So it happened in 2011. It happened in 2014. They kind of broke open, and they were a 7. Yeah, they were a 7. They played Kentucky in the championship as an 8. So UConn has a chance to win their 5th title in 25 years, which is absurd. And it's
Yeah,
with
especially for the
three different
format of the
coaches,
tournament.
completely different schemes, not the same players. It's it's not like people are comparing it to Duke, but Duke was so consistent when they did it, and UConn is like they were out of the tournament for 5 years, and now they're back. Like they just pop in and out here and there, and when they're good, they win a championship. It's absurd.
Yeah, and they've kind of got lucky along the way too for a lot of these games. I mean, they didn't play anybody extremely tough,
They're
but
dominant
I
in this
mean,
tournament. They've won every game by 20.
yeah, because their shooting is insane. Somehow they have figured out how to deal with this ball when nobody else has because they're shooting the lights out. They're shooting like
Them,
40% or something from three.
yeah, them and Miami and Florida Atlantic for that matter. Those are 3 teams that they just make shots. Right. Miami is like the king of shot making. Like they just make shots. Connecticut's been great. They're the best team in the tournament thus far. But yeah, Miami has played these games. They were, in danger against Drake. They were in some danger against Indiana. They were never really in danger against Houston. That was their best game. And then they were down by 15 against Texas. They were like, we're good. And they just came right back. These teams they're not jumping off the page at you as a casual fan, but the way they've played in this tournament, they are 4 of the best teams left. Absolutely. Probably four of the top 12 teams in the country.
Yeah, and people are saying like, "Oh, I'm not excited to watch a 9 versus whatever FDSU was like a 5 or 4 or something." And UConn being a 4 and Miami's the 4, right? Or 5.
5.
So, but I think that just makes it more exciting because you get these teams that, I mean, 3 of these teams had never played in the Final Four before. That should
Yeah.
be the most exciting thing that, like, somebody's going to 3 teams have the chance to cut down the nets for the very first time in their entire, like, ever of their program.
Yeah.
And FAU and FDSU both being mid majors. I mean, when was the last time a mid major won?
I was getting ready to give you the factoid. It was UNLV in 1990 was the last time that
So
a
that's
mid-major won
been
it.
what, 33 years now, 32 years,
Yeah. 33
32 tournaments,
in
and
between. Yeah.
it's, I mean, that's the most exciting thing to me. I mean, seeing kids who were doubted coming out of high school had to go to a mid major, because they thought they were good enough, but just didn't get the offer. And now they're playing for a chance to cut the nets down. I think that's way more exciting than watching a Kansas versus, you know,
Against
North
Carolina.
Carolina
Yeah. Last year.
championship game.
I'm not
I
entirely
mean,
sure
they're
about
both
that
exciting for
team.
different
Yeah.
reasons. They're exciting for different reasons. And maybe that's just me being like a true college fanatic
Uh-huh.
and knowing what these guys go through. That makes the mid-major winning a championship like so exciting to me. But like the casual fan will be like, "Oh, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you where FAU was on a map if you showed
Yeah.
me."
Mm-hmm.
They might not even know it's in Florida because I mean they don't call them Florida Atlantic; they call them FAU all the time. And I think that's more exciting to me. But casuals want to see Kansas, North Carolina. So
I the point I was going to make was UNLV whenever they won it too. Like they were a dominant. Like they were a 1 seed, I think. Like they had lost 2 games all year, which I guess FAU's only lost 3 games, but UNLV was kind of like they were there. They were people knew about them. Both of these teams just kind of snuck here, and that's what's interesting to me because neither of them like traditionally when you have these mid majors that are solid and get 5 seeds or 9 seeds, those are not the teams that you're particularly scared of in March. But here we are with them as being the two left. It's I'm very excited for both of these games for different reasons because, like you said, we're getting a mid-major team in the title game and a very good mid-major team at that. And then I think Connecticut and Miami has the potential to be the most fun game of the tournament. These are two extremely high-powered offenses, a lot of tremendous guards. The shooting is going to be there. Um, but yeah, I think it's breaking like a UConn year. And another point that so you've got your potential championship matchups. Um, Connecticut knocked out San Diego State in the Kawhi year in 2011 on en route to their championship with Kemba. I remember that game because our class, we remember in Tri-C when we used to be
yeah, yeah,
represented,
yeah.
but yeah, we
Uh-huh.
were SDSU.
Oh, that's tough.
So yeah, so I revenge for Kawhi. That's an option. You could have the South Florida Bowl. Imagine if we get Miami FAU in the title game. Um, SDSU winning would be huge for Brian Dutcher. That's a guy that's waited 30 years
That's an
to
old school
be.
Michigan guy, Fab Five
Yeah,
guy.
that's a Steve Fisher right hand man the whole way. Um, and then he gets the chance to win the title now. He got that chance ripped from him the COVID year that where the tournament got canceled. They were bound to be a 1 or a 2 seed that year. They'd lost 2 games. That team was tremendous. And so they can avenge that this year. And then you've got Florida Atlantic coming out of nowhere. We've got 4 really fun teams. What's your prediction? Who title game and winner?
I'm gonna take UConn v SDU, and I'm gonna take the Huskies off the dome here, but I wouldn't be mad seeing any of these teams cut down the nets. I can't wait for Saturday and Monday.
I'd be a little mad if it was Florida Atlantic. And it's not because they don't deserve it. It's just like they've kind of been like the villains just ever since they knocked out Fairleigh Dickinson and they had their windmill 360 dunk at the buzzer that was in kind of poor taste. They've played the role of the villain and they knock out Kansas State, who was kind of the story of the tournament. Um, but they're good. They're a good team. I'm not gonna sit here and say they don't belong here. They absolutely do. They won the games that were in front of them. That's what it takes to win the tournament. So, but yeah, SDSU wins it. That'd be sick. UConn, UConn's probably the team I'm rooting for the least, but they're super fun and they're the best team. And then you've got Miami. Larinaga's awesome. They have some of the best guards in the country. And then, yeah, Indiana lost to the national champion. That would be a better look for our conference because none of our other teams, I don't think, lost any of these guys, if I'm remembering correctly.
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think you're right.
So yeah. I guess I did have some points to make about the Big Ten lack of tournament success, but we can get into that in another episode because we're running a little long. Um, yeah. I think that our talk about the NBA and the college game, I think that was well worth the time that we spent on it. I feel like that and our points about the tournament, that little 10-15 minute tangent, I felt like that. I mean, that's just ball knowledge right there.
We are certified ball knowers.
We are. Yeah, is there anything you want to add before we get our final plugs and then get out of here?
Sure. The Big Ten season might be over, as Michigan State and Wisconsin both lost this past week. But that doesn't mean there's not good basketball left. There's at least the NIT is going on right now, but it'll be a little late for when you see this
By the time we post
pod.
this, yeah, it's
But
gone.
there's 3 games left in the entire year, so enjoy them, soak them up. This is the best time of year, and then we got to roll into something else. I guess baseball.
Yeah, I guess. Or I mean, the NBA, maybe.
Well,
Maybe.
after what I
Yeah.
just said, I probably shouldn't watch the
Yeah, I
NBA.
know. I'll pick it up about midway through the first round of
I'll
the
pick it up in June.
yeah. Shout out to Iowa, the women, for making the
Are they
Final
moving on?
Four.
All righty.
Caitlin Clark is a stud.
She's
Everyone
legit.
knows
She put up
this.
40, didn't she?
I think her Elite Eight win, I think it was a 30-point triple double.
It was a 40-point triple double.
Was it was
It
it?
was a 40-point triple double.
Was it?
Yes.
41, 10 boards, 12 assists, 8 of
Yes.
14 from three. Best player in the country. Um, Also give a shout out to what Maryland, Ohio State both made the Elite Eight. Did someone else make the Elite Eight? No, it was just three of them. Okay. So yeah, hopefully Iowa can bring it home. They play South Carolina. Probably got the two best players in the country on the women's side playing. People are saying that's going to be the most watched women's game ever. I kind of doubt that because UConn isn't in it. But
But I mean, Caitlin Clark is, and
Caitlin
she's a
Clark
national
is
story.
yeah, and South Carolina is undefeated, so that should be a good game. We'll see if Caitlin Clark can put the team in her backpack and carry them to the championship game or not. That
Is
game's
Caitlin,
happening tomorrow night. All right, so it'll be the night that we are posting this at 8 p.m. on all the ESPN channels. So
does Caitlin Clark have eligibility left?
I feel like she might be a junior.
Because she fits into the Fran McCaffrey system very well.
Oh,
She can light it up if she
she
ever
is
wants to.
she
She
is a
wants to break
junior.
some barriers. She can slide over and take. I mean, they love to shoot the three, and she loves to shoot the three. I don't know why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean from West Des Moines, yeah, 6 foot junior. That she could be a nice off the ball guard for that team. I mean, legit, like she could put up, she could average, I feel like 12 points a game in men's college basketball in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
She's
she
that
might
gifted of a
be.
shooter.
Yeah,
She might get torched on defense every single play, but I guarantee you she's going.
you can pick somebody to strategically have her guard
She's yeah.
a, a
If
slow
she
guy
guards the
outside.
shooter, she can get to the closeout. She might not be good for any help, and then she's going to give you 3 threes a game, bare minimum.
Yeah, she's legit.
Stud. Um,
She might
so yeah,
leave after this year and be the first overall pick in the WNBA.
I think that's probably what would happen. I don't know what the rules are for WNBA draft. I don't know if it's junior, like if it's 3 years. I don't know if they have any restrictions. Um, but yeah, I don't see why she wouldn't be the first pick unless if um Paige Buchers goes to the league, but she's been hurt this year, so I don't know. We
I
know
don't
about
know.
we know about
Everything that I've
women's
seen,
basketball a little bit, not much.
everything that I've seen out of her is I don't know if there's anybody better, but
Yeah. This is the most diverse podcast we've had for sure. We're covering all our
we're hitting
bases.
women's basketball, the NBA, everything.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, let's wrap it up. Once again, shout out to our YouTube, our Apple, our Spotify. All the links for those will be in the description of wherever you're watching, as well as our Twitter and our TikTok. Make sure you give all those a follow. Give this video a like or a thumbs up or a 5-star rating. I'm not sure how you rate it on some of the podcast platforms. But yeah, subscribe, like, add us to your folder. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on TikTok. I think over the weekend, I'm gonna edit a little compilation from our predictions for the tournament and just do like a little where we were right and where we were wrong. I think that would be a good TikTok post. So So that's an idea I have. I'll definitely post clips of our discussion, and we'll have some of that be on TikTok as well. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you at some point next week. Have a good one.